All right. See a few more folks trickling in, but let's go ahead and get started. So, welcome to our informational session on the Bachelor of Science degree in Cloud and Network Engineering. This is one of the newest programs in the School of Technology. We've made some changes to the cloud computing program and the network engineering program, come up with a combined degree path, and we're very excited about it and hope to share some of the details of that with you now. Benny, can you go to the next slide? Yeah, great. So I'll introduce myself. I'm Dave Holsinger. I'm the Associate Dean for the program, and with me is also Benny Vargas. He goes by Benny, who's the Program Manager. We've both been behind the redesign of the cloud and networking programs to this new track. And as it says there, we built these to be a launch pad to a rewarding career in cloud and network engineering. The program is extremely career focused. You'll see that through the certifications that are in there, as well as some of the new courses that we've added. So for those of you who are new to IT, we'll talk a little bit about what a cloud and network engineer does. I'll start on the left where it says design, configure, and implement. The program is very much focused on designing and building infrastructure, and whether that's on-premise infrastructure, networking equipment, or cloud infrastructure, so meaning scaling out storage and servers and things like that. That's sort of a key part of the job. Then if you move on, ensuring security of those systems is also a very big deal. And we have a number of security courses built into the program. Monitoring the performance of those systems is also crucial. So we have courses on troubleshooting and analytics. We have some other courses on scalability and performance testing. And then finally, troubleshooting and resolving issues. So, like I mentioned, we do have a troubleshooting course. It's one of the courses that we started to involve AI in. We're really excited about rolling that out to you as part of this new program as well. So I'll talk about some of the skills that we've included in this program for both cloud and networking. You'll see that they start to cross over, and that's why we thought this made sense as a combined program that just merged the two. So on the networking side, design and infrastructure, as I mentioned on the previous slide, huge part of what you're going to be doing. Security and firewalls, automation. So we have a couple of courses that bring in infrastructure as code. Now we have an AI course that talks about how AI can be deployed in automating network deployments as well as security. We have our core networking courses that cover, your basics, LAN, WAN, but then advanced topics as well, like SD-WAN, and we have IoT and telecom in there as well. Deployment and monitoring and troubleshooting, mentioned both of those. Also important for folks who are focusing more on the cloud side, knowing how to scale up deployments and then how to monitor and troubleshoot those when things go wrong. On the cloud side, we focused a lot on hybrid cloud scenarios, so trying to bring on-premise systems together with the cloud. We touch a little bit on multi-cloud operations, so working within, private cloud and a public cloud or multiple public clouds. New course on virtualization. That's a topic that had kind of fallen out previously, but we wanted to emphasize that as part of learning about infrastructure as a service. Orchestration, so moving workloads, as well as things like containerization. Cloud architecture, identity and access management, crucial for security in the cloud. And then finally, talking a little bit about storage and databases in the cloud. So as an overview for the program, we do have 4 tracks. There's a more general track. You'll notice that the certifications for that track are a little bit different when we get to the slides about certifications. You can also choose to focus on Cisco, AWS, or Azure. We did reduce the overall number of credits required for graduation from the previous cloud tracks. Those were around 120. Those have gone down to 109 or 112, depending on which track you choose. We've changed some of the embedded certifications. So depending on which of those paths you take, there'll be 8 to 11. One new innovation is that we've added themed terms. So we're trying to keep courses that focus on similar topics together in the same term. So you're not, for example, learning about Python in one term and then going on to an IEC course that uses Python 3 terms down the road, right? We're trying to keep that stuff together to keep you focused and to streamline getting through those courses. We have an increased focus on virtualized environments, hands-on learning and assessments. So a number of those new courses that I'm talking about are very much lab-oriented, both in the course and in the assessment. I think that's a big positive step from the previous programs. You'll also notice that these programs have the highest concentration of military and BHI 2+ students in the College of Technology. BHI 2+ is our acronym for Black, Hispanic, Indigenous, or 2 or more. And then we've also been recognized as the second best online IT systems and security program in the country. There's a link there from ZDNet that you can check out those reviews on. Very proud of that. And we know it's been very appealing to students as well. So talking about the certifications that are in each of the tracks here, the core track, BSCNE General, focuses primarily on the CompTIA certifications, A+, Net+, Sec+, Cloud+. Also includes Linux Professional Institute and ITIL. Those are in all of our tracks. And this track and the Cisco track also include a micro-credential for certified network technician. A micro-credential is something that you can share as a LinkedIn badge. You can add it to a resume and it details the specific skills and certifications that belong to it. So if you're looking to, for example, change into a network technician role from what you're doing now, that's a great way to get started and have a resume that's easily shareable. In Cisco, sorry, Benny, can you go back a sec? In Cisco, you'll notice that you don't have the CompTIA Net Plus and Sec Plus. Those are topics that are largely covered by the CCNA and the Cisco cybersecurity certifications. So rather than have you repeat content, we've said, let's just focus these students in that track on Cisco's version of that same content. And then we also have the DevNet as more of looking at the DevOps end of things as a Cisco certification. So for AWS and Azure, similar story with the certifications. There you have Net Plus and Sec Plus from CompTIA, but not Cloud Plus. Cloud Plus, that content is largely covered by other certifications in AWS and Azure. So the AWS Certified Practitioner or SysOps Administrator both cover those. For Azure, it's the Azure Fundamentals or Azure Infrastructure Solutions. Both of them have now a Solutions Architect certification. That's something we changed from the previous version of the Azure specialization. There we had a developer-focused certification that really wasn't the best fit for the program, especially now that we're focused on these programs being about building and managing infrastructure. So we can go to the next slide. So talking about these theme terms, I mentioned that earlier, but wanted to give you a sense of how that actually works in the program. So the first two terms are very much focused on the technology basics, communications, so formal writing, technical communications. Moving on to foundations and applications, you'll take things like the Intro to Networking course, the Network Plus certification, moving on to then determine networking, which gets into some of the more advanced concepts like deployment, troubleshooting, and so on. You'll have a term that's around automation and programming. So we include some introduction to Python courses, as well as then some of the courses that get into automation using infrastructure as code tools and so on. There's a chapter specifically on data and security. And then we start to move into the higher level cloud and infrastructure themes. And that's where, for example, if you're studying AWS or Azure, some of those certifications will come into play. The last two terms very much focus on bringing all those technologies together. So we have our infrastructure as a service course, we have hybrid cloud and orchestration course, and then finally leadership and mastery is the last term that includes your capstone and some additional communication courses. To give you an idea of potential career paths here, these go from sort of starting to more advanced. So right out of the gate, some of you may even already be working as a network technician if you've got prior IT experience. Some of you may be switching into that kind of role. But we see that nationwide, an average salary starting at around $75,000. After a little bit of more experience, or once you complete your BS degree, you'll probably move into a role like system administrator, network administrator, or network or cloud engineer. Those require a few more certifications, usually require a BS degree. and maybe a few years of experience. Once you've been in the job for, say, 5 years or so, the roles you can look at moving into would be something like a hybrid network cloud engineer or a network cloud architect. Um, and then eventually, if you want to move up into management in your career, a role like chief network architect, chief cloud officer, even CTO roles in a lot of companies would be the sort of final trajectory for someone who wants to move into management. Demand for all of these is high. These are jobs where there's still a lot of physical components. There are a lot of moving parts to be understood in building out architectures. It's not one where we see, jobs being automated away by AI right away, as contrast with some other fields. And we have incorporated AI content into the new courses for this program, so you'll learn to work with it effectively in your role, for example, as a cloud or network engineer, in a way that will keep you around and not let your job be automated out from under you. So, talking about why students choose our programs, we get a lot of feedback from graduates as well as people who've just come into the programs on why they chose us. And the single most common factor is that they are career relevant. They align either with students' current careers or the career path that they might want to move into. So thinking about somebody who may be working as a network technician, maybe they want to move into a network architect role, right? Everything that we're putting into this degree is designed to advance you into that type of a role. And we want to make it, suitable for the professional goals that you have. The other reason that people choose our programs, obviously, is the certification focus, right? We've included some really um, high value industry certifications, things like the CCNA, things like the Azure AWS certs, as well as those CompTIA foundational certs, all are definitely appealing to employers, and that's why we chose to embed them in the degree plan. So this is a benefit for you as you work through your degree as well. If you come to us with not a lot of technical experience, having things like the A plus, Net plus, Sec plus let you start to move into roles in the field even before you've completed your degree. Can we go on to the next one? Benny, next slide. So some other reasons students have chosen us. Self-paced learning is a big one. We know a lot of you, may work a full-time job, and our model here is flexible both in time and the way you work through your courses. Um, we know that's important, and we also know that we have some students who like to accelerate, right? We have students who may be able to study full-time, may be able to work through 10 courses in a term as opposed to 4, right? We want to be able to serve both of those populations, and students have generally appreciated that. And finally, the reputation of the program and recommendations. We know there's a lot of positive word of mouth. For example, we find a lot of students, active duty military, have come to us because a colleague may have taken the network engineering program at WGU. Um, we know that we're getting a lot of positive references, and we're hoping to continue to build on that. So, talking about a career in cloud and networking, the things you'll be doing, and you'll definitely be working with leading edge technologies. Some of the things that we cover in the later terms are really valuable to organizations, especially building out hybrid networks, hybrid cloud operations, being able to do things like orchestration, containerization, and so on. As we mentioned, these jobs tend to be in high demand, especially now with all the data center build outs that are happening to support AI. We've seen all the major tech companies, make significant investments into new data centers. Somebody's got to run those, right? We hope it's our graduates. These jobs do have good opportunities for advancement. Like we said, there's a definite trajectory in the career. And the salaries that you saw were national averages, but they're all, on par with other tech professions. And just to talk about that return on investment. So internally, when we're considering building out new programs, we use something we call factored graduate return. And that measures the value of your degree over your entire career in terms of what's the increase in salary that you can expect over your remaining working years, and then divide that by the cost of your education. So if you look at the types of salaries you can expect 2, 5, or 10 years out for those cloud and networking jobs, the return on your investment, your factored graduate return, can be as high as 40x, right? So you're getting 40 times out what you put in. Again, we're working from national averages here, so these may be different region by region, maybe higher in the Northeast or West Coast, so on. But for a non-degreed IT job, for example, a help desk tech, someone who's just getting started out in the field, average salary is 53,245. If you move into one of those roles that requires a BS, you'll see an immediate bump of close to $30,000 in the base salary, right? And then if we look how those people are performing 5 years out, average salary nationally, again, $117,890. And compare that to where you started off, right? It's almost double or more than double. We pulled this based on data from Lightcast, which is a national analytics database of career postings, skills that employers are looking for, average salaries, and so on. So our average student is graduating at about 35 years of age. Obviously, that's a wide range, but the middle of the pack is around 35. So you can figure roughly 30 to 35 years of additional employment after that. And that's how we arrive at those estimates. Okay, so we'll move on to questions. I see a few out there. Is the demand considered in the 2025 job market? So I just showed you, we pulled stats from 2024. We do update these annually, but haven't gotten around to that update yet. But the numbers that I've seen so far, the salaries, for example, and the demand is on par, if not increasing. There's a question, will there be a master's degree in cloud or networking in the future? We are not planning one at this time, but if you are interested in continuing on to a master's program, you can transfer some of the coursework that you've done already into the cybersecurity degree program. We do also have a new software engineering program with a focus on DevOps. And I'm not sure what courses transfer, but I know that's a path that a lot of our students may want to take. So that's also something worth looking into if you want to stay at WGU. Look in the Q&A here. Someone saying that they're primarily working in iPaaS using AWS. Your goal is to become a platform integration architect with this degree program, complement those goals. So I would say generally yes. There are going to be some things that you might want to add on to your degree if that's your specific track. But a lot of the content is, focused on things like hybrid integrations. There's virtualization and other things that are covered that might integrate to that as well. So I'd say this would be a great starting point for you. Obviously, the goal of enrolling at WGU is to get a BS degree, right? And while we include some certs, we know we can't include everything that might be necessary for a future career path. And quite honestly, that's really your decision once you graduate as to, what is going to keep my skills current and what is going to best fit the job role that I'm in or looking at the time that I graduate. Reading through the rest of the questions here. What does AI for IT automation course cover? You're swapping that out for D306 in October. Yeah, the AI for it's actually for network automation and security. So the course focuses a lot on using AI tools for scalability testing, as well as then some of the AI tools that are available for network topologies, using it to automatically map out network topologies, both for scaling and then for security purposes. And then finally, we do cover some of the tools, for AI threat detection to networks as well as threat modeling. All told, just a broad application of AI technologies that are available to folks who are concerned about architecting scalable and secure networks. Someone is currently working at a network support specialist with about 3 years of help desk and close to 15 certs. Would I be able to move into a network cloud engineer role? Absolutely, that's what this program is all about, right? With a BS degree, with the content that we cover, you're looking at being able to move from the type of role that you maybe into now to one that is more of an engineering role, right? Sorry if you already stated this, but are the classes live taught or is there an option for that? So in a lot of courses, we do have cohorts. So you'll be able to meet with instructors with a group of other students. We do those in particular for the Net Plus and Sec Plus certifications. I think the AWS Cloud Fundamentals also has it. There are probably more that I'm forgetting. Not all courses have it, but a lot do. Which track do you see as having the most career growth and longevity? Um, Again, it really depends on how you want to focus your career once you graduate. If you're really committed to staying on the networking side of things, having a foundation in Cisco can get you started and gives you a lot of paths to grow from. On the cloud side, I'd say either of the specialty tracks, gives you a route to then expanding your career. So it's really hard to say which one is necessarily going to provide the greatest career growth. It ultimately depends on what you want your career to be, because these all basically give you a good starting point for either a networking or a cloud career. Is this degree entry level friendly? Um, we aim for all of our degrees to be entry level friendly. Anything you'll see in the School of Technology, we do tend to start off with a core curriculum that everybody goes through, an introduction to IT, some of the same communications courses, some of the same early certifications. And absolutely, we regularly have students graduate who, came to us with no technical experience at all. Are there any tech companies that are willing to train WGU students for work study? So I know we've had good experience placing students into internships, but you would need to talk to specifically the careers office. We're also working on virtual internship opportunities, so there are plenty of chances to get into that. That's sort of out of the scope of what we usually talk about in the intro to the program course. Um, Talk to your enrollment counselor if you're interested in enrolling, and they may be able to give you a little bit more detail. Question of, if I apply with one track in mind and want to switch to another, what is that process? It's pretty straightforward. It's a lot easier if you're earlier in your program. But like I was saying earlier, the first few terms have a lot of overlapping coursework, and it's pretty straightforward to just ask your mentor to transition over to a different degree. Some of the breakpoints where that becomes a little bit harder, for example, if you have taken the CCNA, or if you started on the path of the AWS and Azure certifications, then transitioning might mean you'd have to take additional coursework. It might take you a little bit longer to graduate. Um, but generally, it's a very straightforward process. Question about, does this program consist of hands-on labs? Are there any platforms we should be, excuse me, platforms we should be aware of before starting? So there are quite a few hands-on labs. Typically, those are done doing some sort of remote desktop into either a Windows or Linux environment. If you're not yet familiar with Linux, you'll be taking the Linux Professional Institute certification to make sure you're ready to go for that. We have labs that use the GNS3 network modeling platform. So if that's something you're interested in, you can have a look at that before you join, but clearly you'll learn that during the program. So there's no need to feel like you have to get ahead of things. We'll equip you to, be ready to go on those labs as they happen. Question. I'm very interested in this course. I do have a bachelor in business background, but I'm accelerating my knowledge gathering CompTIA, Sec Plus, and CISA. Now I need guidance to get admitted for a career. Yeah, you might also want to consider the cybersecurity track. We do have a pretty substantial focus on security in this program. But if you're already doing Sec Plus and CISA, cybersecurity may be a better option for you depending on where you want to focus. Question, is a Cisco track ideal for someone looking to work under government contracts? We know that we have a lot of Cisco folks coming to us from the military, for example. But I wouldn't say Cisco is the only track for government jobs. There are a lot of government agencies who've moved on to the new Azure for Government platform. So getting Azure certifications can be very useful as well.
Hey Dave, did you see the Q&A questions by Jeff?
I'm looking in there now. I was trying to answer questions as they come in. Question: I'm a WG graduate from the education department with no IT experience. Are these programs a great place to start? So, as I think I've said a few times now, we do start all of our IT programs with a similar core curriculum, and that is appropriate for people with no IT background. You'll come in, you'll take Intro to IT, you'll take some of the technical communication courses, you will take, foundations of networking before you get started on your Network Plus. So all of these things will definitely build you up into the later parts of the program. And like I said, we have people graduate all the time who came to us with no IT experience at all. And I think I answered Shana or Shauna's question about iPass. Question: would this degree be helpful for DevOps roles? We used to have a little bit more DevOps focused on the cloud side of things. There are still some courses that touch on DevOps broadly, but it's not a specialization. If that's a field you're interested in going into, this is a good place to start. And then we do have a master's track in the software engineering program that focuses specifically on DevOps. They're a little bit more from the dev side than the ops side, but you'll cover all of that content. Question: I currently work at AWS as a DCO tech. How much will the AWS track help outside of AWS as far as career growth is concerned? I mean, we have a specialized AWS track because it's clearly the largest player in the market for cloud services. So, if you wanted to think about working outside of big tech, for example, these programs are not meant to just guide you to a career in a big tech organization like AWS or Microsoft, something like that. A lot of our students go on to work in IT in, for example, healthcare or retail operations, especially or banking, for example. All of these types of organizations where you have a combination of some systems in remote sites, whether those be stores or clinics or whatever, versus centralized cloud operations, right? For all of those, they need people who are able to, work across those fields and help them build out the infrastructure for a distributed workforce. So I think you're well suited to careers both in big tech as well as outside of big tech. Would technologies like Kubernetes be taught? Yes, the hybrid cloud and orchestration course does talk directly about Kubernetes. Which programming languages will be taught? We focus on Python. There is an introductory Python course and then a course called Python for IT Automation. That scripting experience is also used in the network automation and deployment courses where we get into IAC. So there are some tools where you can use Python as sort of the wrapper scripting language for doing those IAC deployments. That's why we stuck basically with that. Thanks for answering the question about Cisco and government. Here, DoD is requiring Sec Plus now as well, but it's mentioned that Sec Plus is not part of the Cisco track. Yeah, and this is something that we debated in coming up with the program. So we obviously want to get students to graduation as soon as we can. And the Cisco certs that you get pretty much cover the same content that's in Sec Plus. If it's a DoD requirement, it's not a terribly expensive cert to go out and get on your own. And if you have Net Plus, A Plus, and all that already, you'll have great experience going through the CompTIA exams. So again, it really depends on specific job requirements. We chose to focus on the Cisco certs because if you're going to be working in a Cisco environment, it's best to learn their way of doing, network configurations and security. Do AWS or Azure still offer their academy within the partnership? If you're referring to the learning materials that come from AWS and Azure, yes, we do still include those. We have some additional outside learning resources as well for those tracks. but you will still be using, for example, the Microsoft Learn platform. Does WGU currently have an active partnership with Amazon through the Career Choice program? Yes, we do. You can apply through Career Choice, and both of those tracks are available to you. What AI is included in classes of all tracks? I think I've kind of covered that. We have a couple of courses that talk about using AI, and then we have some AI-driven labs, especially in the analytics and troubleshooting course. Recommended laptop specs, that's something you can get off the WGU website. If you go through enrollment, they can provide you with that stuff. They'll let you know exactly what you need. Do the Python courses go over object-oriented programming? To some extent. These are meant to be more practical Python courses, and you'll cover topics like, dealing with APIs, dealing with files, reading data from files and processing it. So less about the more computer science end of things, more about the focused actually using Python and, the types of tasks that you might encounter as a network or cloud engineer. We're getting close to the end here. Any other questions, or should I close it out? One final question here. Could you, for example, take the certifications without taking the classes if you're comfortable with the knowledge? So if you take certifications outside of WGU before you start, you can transfer those in for credit. So if you're already ahead of the curve, that's definitely something you can pursue before you sign up for WGU.
And Dave, answer Abdullah's question, I think he's specifically saying maybe within the program, in which case, yes, WGU is at your own pace. So if you can show that you have the competency and the necessary experience with the subject matter to move straight into an assessment or certification exam, you can.
Right. That's definitely part of our flexible learning model, right? It's based on what you know, what you have mastery of. We call it competency-based education. And if you feel like you're already fully versed in everything that might be on an exam, you can typically get permission from an instructor to just go ahead and take the exam. That will kind of apply. It can apply to the cert courses as well. And then we have a question about somebody currently studying for the CCNA. If you pass it, would WGU take it as a credit? Yes, it absolutely will.
This was a great group. Great question.
Yeah, large group with some very specific and good questions. So appreciate everybody's time. I'm going to close out the session now. If you have additional questions about the program, feel free to reach out to your feel free to reach out to your enrollment counselor, and they can answer more detailed questions that you might have.
Hey, Dave, Ryan, last question is asking, will this breakout be recorded and available to refer back to?
Yes. So this breakout is recorded. You'll get a link once the session is done. Anybody who registered and joined us will be able to have that link for reference later.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining. Thank you for the wonderful questions. We look forward to having you as WGU students, specifically in the cloud and network engineering degree that we are launching in October. So thank you all so much for your time.
Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.